Alrighty, what is up, guys? It is 5:20 a.m. I'm off to a place that I cannot believe I haven't fished more this year, but it's kind of been a weird year as far as the weather out here in California. The travel, the trips, the tournaments just have kind of veered us away from this body of water. Today we're back going to the California Delta. Yeah, I have no idea what to expect. Typically this time of year, the bite is pretty good. A lot of fish are done spawning. You got a lot of post-spawn fish, topwater fish, reaction fish, but it's obviously been a lot different of a year all around California, not just here. The Delta, with all the flooding, all the rain, all the snow melt, cold water, the levee breaks, I think the Delta was the one body of water that was affected the most in a negative way. And I'm just saying that just because of what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, that the bite's really tough. You look at some of the tournament weights, doesn't seem to be that good, that impressive. So I don't know if it's a late spawn, a delayed spawn, fish are just acting different, or what the deal is. I'm gonna go try my luck on the California Delta for the first time in about a month and a half. As always, got a bunch of rods, a bunch of tackle with me just to keep things open. You never know what these fish will be in the mood for. Another day out on the water. Today it's the California Delta. We'll see what happens. Let's get started. I have no idea what to do or throw, but might as well go with a big double buzz first. Yeah, it's worth a shot for now. Figured we get bit on the double buzz, it would have been a giant. That was something more finessey. Oh no! I was happy to break the skunk. Of course, on a worm, but that's okay. I mean, it's a bite. First bite of the day. I think one of the mistakes I've made on the Delta sometimes, not all the time, but you start off throwing power fish and stuff, topwater and reaction, and I feel like I've just wasted a lot of time, sometimes, not all the time. It's where it's just not happening and you keep it in your hand too long when you just should slow down the whole time. You've really missed a good bite window when all you had to do was pick up a finesse rod. I'm not saying I'm going to keep this in my hand all day, but when you want a bite out here, it's usually your best choice. Got an interesting tide today. Big drop. Started at a high tide. It is super high. It should be dropping all the way till about 2 o'clock, I think. So moving water, which typically is a good thing. I didn't think it'd be this gusty. The wind isn't bad, but the gusts are kind of surprising. So we'll see how that affects these fish. The water does look semi-clear, so maybe we'll go looking a little bit later. Don't know. All I can say is I hope today doesn't include a bunch of cast montages. This should be up tucked, kind of, maybe. are a little unexpected. Not a giant, but a punch fish. Thank you, sir. Pit boss. This water's so high, you figured maybe, just maybe, some of these fish are tucked way up in there. That turtle. What he had in its mouth? Big old bluegill. Sorry, dude. I didn't mean to make you lose your meal. 8:30. Not really anything happening. Might need to make a move soon. I don't know. Punchy, punchy, punchy. He's a chunker. Man, he hit it like right at the top too, it seemed like. Meatball. Alright, fish number 2. Same deal, punching. I've stood up a couple of times. Granted, the water's not that low. I mean, it's still pretty high, and it is clear, but I haven't seen much life, much activity. So, figured if I can't see them, they're probably in places where I can't see. But going into the thick stuff. Still got him. Jeez Louise. Way up in there. Alright, that kind of confirms it. These fish are way up in the business. Right now, at least. Frog was supposed to get bit right there. Supposed to get bit. Right at the top. Dude, that's another fish. They ate the bait right at the top. Just bumping the roof, as they say. A bad one? All right, well, I think this is pretty much what we need to do 95% of the day. Yeah, that bite was interesting. These canopies obviously are like rooftops, and you punch through them. Usually you get bit on the fall, sometimes a couple of hops. But sometimes, and it hasn't happened to me a ton, but you'll pitch it in there, you'll bust through, and then you'll kind of just bang it up against the roof. Not to say that that's exactly how they want it, but I mean, I guarantee if we pull some of this stuff apart, and I've seen it, there's crawfish that actually hang on this stuff. I don't know, maybe it looks like a crawfish or a little bluegill trying to escape. It's an easy meal for some of these bass sitting under here. I think 90% of the battle out here on the Delta is figuring out what you should be doing, what you should be throwing, and if you can figure that out, you can at least get a few bites. Not saying this is going to be some epic bite and we just figured it out all of a sudden, but it's like, do they want something finesse, moving? You gotta fish rock, you gotta fish open water, islands, fish the cover, fish the slop with a frog. So many options, so many combinations of what you can throw out here. It can be daunting, but once you get that at least hint or clue as to how you can catch a few of them, that's like half the battle. Right now there is a population of fish that are under these mats and they're eating the punch. I think we gotta keep going with it. Same thing happened. Brought it up and he stole it. Oh man, I sent him to the moon. Oh my god. Literally. Oh my god. Poor dude. I'm in like 10 foot right here, and that bait got bit within the first foot of that drop, so there must be fish just hanging right underneath these canopies. Feels better. Oh, son of a gun! What the heck? How do you come off? Hey, man, should have dogged him a little bit more. Letting them flop around too much. That's not the Delta typical punch fish. I mean, I've definitely caught small fish punching, but 8 inchers? Jeez. Sounds like it's playing with it. Probably another 8 incher, right? There we go. Better one. And these fish are all fat, that's for sure. Not the biggest ones, but chunky. Well, if anything, it's a fun way to catch them, even if they're not the biggest ones in the world. Can't say a punch bite isn't that fun, no matter what the size. Still hopeful though. I'm still hopeful that there's some big ones sitting under these mats too, and if we just make enough casts and get enough bites, we'll eventually get lucky and run into the right one. Better. Man, I love that violin. Love that violin. Alright, starting to remember how to punch. When the bottom of your kayak looks like that, that's a good sign. Always want to see the same bait. Just a bunch of them torn off at the bottom. Cool. Came up and got that. I just stopped here on a whim. I was like, you know what? Looks kind of spinnerbaity. Alright, well, I was making a run to another area where there was some mats that I could punch, but well, I might have to toss the spinnerbait over here a little bit. It's good when they come out and eat it like that. It's definitely a sign that they're chasing some bait. I've seen a little bit of bait flicking around, so the tide is way lower. It's about 1 o'clock and probably dropped a good 3 feet since we launched the boat. In theory, you figure some of those fish that were under the cover maybe have sucked out a little bit with this lower water and you might be able to actually catch them in some open water. It's definitely not an easy day by any means. Tried a lot of stuff, made a lot of casts. I mean, even the quality's not really there. It's just kind of junk fishing for the most part. Oh God. Maybe the spinnerbait bite is on. Jeez Louise. There's a good one. Nice healthy one. There we go. Nice delta fish. A big fish of the day. Setting up right there too. I think it was only a few cranks before that fish ate that bait. All this grass, the tulies. That's the thing about the delta. These fish can just hide so many places. Just pop out of nowhere and eat your bait. Just places you'd never guess, really. Oh yeah. Man, I really want that spinnerbait. Fella. Another little pattern. That's 3 bites on the spinnerbait, and you know for sure there's a bunch more fish that we didn't get to bite, so I'm gonna have to make a couple of passes through here. Little one. Another spinnerbait bite. Jeez. Oh no, I knew something was eating it. I just saw it coming right under the boat. Like a 1.5 pound, 2 pounder. What the heck? Wow, they do want the spinnerbait bad. Wow, that's a really big one in like literally a foot of water. I was just about to leave the spot because I thought it was too shallow. Apparently not. Delta, the fish do not mind being shallow. Yeah, it's a pretty big one right there. Jeez. Oh, easy, fella. That's a 5er. Yeah, big one. Got that fish right there. Just dropped the spinnerbait and ate it. Nice fish right there. Thank you, sir. That was a little bit lucky, not gonna lie. Just about to leave, dropped the rod. I literally gave that fish just enough time he needed to eat the spinnerbait. I think that last fish too is a good reminder. I'm definitely guilty of it. You know, you think you have the worst luck in the world when you miss a fish or it misses your bait or you lose a fish. Gotta remind yourself that stuff like that happens too. And it all evens out in the end. Alrighty guys, that is going to do it for today's day out on the California Delta. You know, it was an interesting day. We kind of went in with a poor mindset, but it is what it is. It's just the reports I've been hearing, what my friends have been telling me. It's been really, really tough. An atypical year for the Delta, of course, and a lot of people with the crazy weather thought by now for sure it would really pick up, the bite would be off the charts. Just hasn't happened yet. Going in with that kind of mindset, I didn't have a lot of expectations. I knew that we had a high tide today and we'd be dropping all day, so I had a variety of baits ready to go for this time of year. Started off with some Topwater, threw a buzzbait, nothing, threw a little bit of a popper, some frog action. Always got to start with some Topwater first thing in the morning on the Delta, but not a single bite, not a sniff. I think at one point I ended up changing to a weightless worm, 5-inch worm, wacky style. Didn't take long, made a cast, saw the line start to swim off, set the hook, a fish, some sloppiness on my part, fish spit the hook. Who knows, didn't really feel that big, but I thought, okay, that's a bite, that's a good sign. Kept going with it, mixing in some other baits, nothing. I finally changed over to a punch rig. The one thing, like I mentioned, was the tide was super high. This water this morning was way up in the toolies, and you can imagine some of that typical stuff that, you know, I like to fish, the outside grass lines, the toolie lines. That was pretty deep, so figured we'll pick up a punch rig. Maybe we'll flip way back in there where they potentially could be hiding. Made a pitch way back in there, kind of just lifted the rod up, and all of a sudden started to pull back. But it was a bite on that little pit boss, set the hook, got it in the boat. Not a big one, but a fun bite, and maybe another piece of the puzzle. That's the thing with the Delta. As I've said before, for me at least, out on the Delta, 90% of the battle is figuring out a bait or a presentation that they're actually gonna bite. It's crazy how bait and presentation, and even spot specific, the bite can be out on the Delta at all times of year. But obviously with a kayak and only being able to cover X amount of water in a day, you really have to be able to figure out that bait, that presentation, that technique that most of the fish are gonna bite. We found some mats and started punching that, and that is really when we did our damage. Got a third bite on it. Again, not a big fish, but another bite. Then our fourth bite, punching those canopies. And that fourth one, I believe, was one that it just hit the surface, went maybe about 6-7 inches under the water and got bit and stuck that fish. And that was a little bit of a clue too, that these fish were not just under these canopies. It seemed like a lot of these fish were just right subsurface. And when you drop your bait in there, they'd hit it almost immediately. I mean, some of our bites punching today were actually in like 6 to 8 foot of water, and I got bit in the first foot. So you know when the fish are biting like that, they're hanging right up at the tops. And as I mentioned, I've seen it before, but you can get little bluegill, little crawfish hanging off those vines right at the top, and those fish will just pluck them off. I don't know if that was imitating that or what, but really that was the deal. I stood up, I looked around, the water was relatively clear. I didn't see anything. It made sense that a lot of these fish were underneath the cover, buried in some nasty stuff, and you had to punch a big weight to get to these fish and get them to bite. Caught a few more doing it, kind of just cruising around until I could find the right stuff, the right ingredients to what I wanted to punch. Not an epic bite, and certainly not the biggest fish in the world, but I'll tell you what, when you can get on a punch bite, it's a lot of fun. And then I think right around 1 o'clock, I decided that I'd make a pretty good run, about a mile run to another area of islands that had similar canopies, similar punchable vegetation, but about halfway there, I don't know, on a whim, and this happens a lot more than you'd think. It just doesn't make the videos, but on a whim, I just saw something good looking, thought, you know, it's windy, pick up the spinnerbait, the tide's really dropping now, what's the worst that could happen? Well, we did that, first few casts, had one come right to the boat, chase the spinnerbait, eat it right there, got one on the spinnerbait, finally something other than a punch fish, maybe a pattern, maybe something else. Not many casts later, we got another one on the spinnerbait. Thought, okay, well, you know what, we got to dedicate the rest of our day to this little stretch on the spinnerbait, and that's what we did. Caught a couple of nice ones actually doing it, some of the bigger fish of the day. They were coming out and chasing that thing and smoking it, so a lot of fun to catch them on a spinnerbait. 3 o'clock now, that's a wrap for today's day out on the Delta. I don't know, maybe it's turning on now. Maybe these fish are starting to get out of that phone, start to chase, start to feed. Hopefully that Topwater, that frog bite starts to turn on. As always, I thank you guys for watching, for coming along. I will catch you guys in the next video.